Hi, my name is Eric from Etiquette, and this is 100 teacher tips. Tips that every teacher should follow to ensure success in the classroom. Number 1, keep eye contact with students. It shows that you are comfortable with being a leader. What does this mean? When you go into the classroom, as soon as the students enter, I want you to make eye contact with your students and keep it until they look away. This might sound strange, but you'll find often in the classroom, while you're teaching, you have to engage the students by looking directly at them. Some students will try and look into your eyes and see if you flinch. As humans, we are conditioned that we don't want other people to feel uncomfortable. So what happens if you look into someone's eyes? Usually you look away because you don't want them to feel uncomfortable. In the classroom, you are the leader. So what you're supposed to do is look into your students' eyes, explain something. It's not about intimidating them, but you stare into their eyes until they look away. Does that mean that you're trying to dominate them or make them feel uncomfortable? No, actually what that student will think is, wow, this teacher feels comfortable in this class and they aren't afraid to make eye contact with me. See, the problem is that a lot of teachers are taught to obey rules. Most teachers, while growing up, were good students themselves, and as students, they were well disciplined and they always listened to their teacher. And now when you have to become a teacher, you have to be more dominant and you have to be a stronger force in the classroom. And that starts with eye contact. Now, eye contact can also be used to subdue some students that are acting out. What do I mean by that? If students are doing something that you don't actually like, instead of shouting at them, you can just keep eye contact with them, give them the stare, and they will stop. Let me repeat. Eye contact is fantastic. As a teacher, keep eye contact with your students until they look away. Eye contact also helps you build relationships with your students. And number 3, you can develop a stare that you use instead of words to tell students, hey, listen, what you're doing right now is wrong. I want you to stop doing that. Tip number 2, a power pose. Stand feet apart, shoulders back. A power pose will help you feel more confident. I see many new teachers coming into education and they first start teaching and they make themselves smaller and they crouch down without thinking about it. Now, consciously, I want you to make yourself bigger because your body language will have an effect on your mindset. So you put your shoulders back, you stand up straight, you smile, you keep eye contact with your students. By having your feet apart, it shows them, wow, I'm not afraid, I'm not going to be pushed around, and you will feel yourself growing more confident by using a power pose. Okay, so tip 2 is have a more confident body language, and that will affect your teaching. Teacher tip number 3, speak slower and deeper. Students don't trust a squeaky voice. So I want you to start practicing speaking slower and deeper. When you speak slowly, it shows confidence because you are taking things at your own time. And I want to emphasize that this is different from a teacher that has a lot of information to share and they want to do so quickly. But if a teacher speaks too quickly because they are afraid of silence, it shows a lack of confidence and students will attack that. So start taking your time and speaking slower. What I would also say is actually mix it up so you can speak slowly and then a little bit quicker when you want to. It keeps them on their toes. So why should you speak in a deeper voice? Well, I do this all the time. You can probably hear me speaking like this, which is a little bit higher than I would, but it all depends on your students. Because if you use a higher voice tone, It makes students feel more comfortable with you. So for example, in my classes, I expect the students to speak a lot. I don't want them to be shy or afraid. So when I'm talking to maybe some girls or shy students, I will actually speak at a higher pitch tone so that they feel more comfortable and not as threatened. However, if I'm going to speak to some students that are difficult to handle and that, they've got strong personalities, I'm going to bring my voice tone down. I'm going to bring it much deeper so that they can feel it resonate with them. Because a deeper voice shows a masculinity. Now you might say, Eric, I'm a female teacher. How does that affect me? Doesn't matter. Speak slower and lower, and it will show them that your words come from a place of strength. Obviously, this doesn't happen all the time. You have some teachers with a high voice that are in control of their classrooms. But this is a good tip to remember. So even for myself, I think about it when I work with students with a strong personality, I speak lower. And when I want students to feel more comfortable with me, I'll speak at a higher tone. Number 4, set rules early and teach students the classroom procedures. Let students know your expectations from the very first day of school. What's the difference between a good classroom and a bad classroom? A good classroom has procedures and students know exactly what is expected of them. In a bad classroom, students don't feel that there are any rules or controls, so they will act out because they do not feel secure. So what are you going to do as a teacher? The very first week of school, you're going to show them the classroom rules, and you're also going to teach them the procedures that you want in the classroom. What are procedures? It's the actions that the students will take for every situation in the class. You might think, Eric, it's unnecessary. The students should already know how to act. No, make sure and teach them what you expect step by step. For example, when students enter the class, how do they enter? What is the first thing they do? When they sit down, what books do they take out? What do they start working on? One of the worst things teachers can do is have students come into their classrooms loud and disruptive. So, have a procedure in place. They come into their classroom, they sit down, they take out a book, and they start working on something. You can also have procedures for someone is sick, or when you want the student's attention, you can just raise your hand and they have to be quiet and look up. You can have an exit procedure. You can have a procedure for handing in homework. You should have so many procedures that the students know exactly what they're doing when they get into the class. What usually happens in the classroom is that students come to class and they're very sweet the first couple of weeks, and that's when you have to take advantage of the situation and teach them the procedures and reinforce it so that their behavior stays the same the rest of the school year. The problem is a lot of teachers go in, they see the kids so sweet and innocent, and they think it will stay that way automatically. No, it doesn't. Make sure to have procedures in place so that the students know exactly what is expected of them. You can print it out and put it onto the wall. You can send it home to their parents so that they sign it, but make sure that the students know what you want. Tip number 5, enforce your rules fairly. Students feel safer if they know what their boundaries are. Tip 4 is to teach the students the rules and the procedures of the classroom. But that doesn't matter if you don't enforce the rules fairly. That means that the rules should apply to all the students at the same standard. Because if you punish one student for doing something and you don't punish another student for doing the same thing, then you're not being fair. And one of the biggest things that we as humans feel at a very instinctive level is that if something is unfair, we don't like that. And students expect you as the teacher to be a fair judge. If you are fair, students will accept your judgment. They will listen to you because they feel like they can trust you and you will do the right thing for the class. As a teacher, You should also not be too strict. If there's something small that happens, just turn a blind eye. You don't want to punish students just for doing something small. Sometimes it's better to let it go. For example, if a student might say something bad, but it's not aimed at you or one of the other students, it just comes out in frustration, if it's possible, just ignore it, like you didn't even hear it. So, tip 5. Enforce your rules fairly. Students will feel safer with you if they know they can trust your judgment and they know what their boundaries are in the classroom. Tip number 6. Punish the behavior, not the child. The student isn't bad, but the behavior is unwanted. It is very important for us as teachers to build relationships with our students. And if they feel like we don't like them, they won't like us back and they won't feel comfortable with us. So whenever something happens in the class, don't get angry at the student. You say, I'm disappointed, that behavior is unwanted, and I don't want to see it again. But if you make it about the student, they will feel like you are attacking them. The best way to solve problems in the classroom is by going to the student and saying, this is not the behavior I want in my classroom, and I think you can do better. Instead of going to the student and saying, what you are doing is horrible, I hate that you're doing that. No, you go and you say, listen, this is not the behavior I wanted in my classroom. I think you are much better than this, and I want you to try harder in the future. Okay, do you guys understand that? Make sure you punish the behavior and not the child. Number 7, the first minutes of class are crucial. Have work set up for the students to start working as soon as they get into class. Every teacher has a routine for their classroom. Many teachers wait for all the students to come inside, sit down and greet the students and do roll call. But you are wasting precious time. Instead, have the students come in, have a procedure where they have to open up their books and they can review work they've done, or they can preview the work that you will do, or they can take out a book to read, but get them into your classroom and get them working as quickly as possible. You can take roll call while they're sitting down instead of having a discussion with the students. But this depends. I know that some teachers like to have roll call because it calms the students down. If that is what you like to do, by all means do that. But I still think it's very important to get the students working as soon as possible. So when they get into the class, they know, oh, okay, wait, the teacher expects me to take out my book and to do this. And they do that every class. So you don't have the problem of coming into the class telling all the kids, okay, everyone, settle down. Jimmy, put that away, take your seat. So when they get into the classroom, they have to sit down, they have to take out their books, and they are ready to work. Trust me, if your principal sees this happening in your class, they will be so impressed with you, because teachers don't generally do that. So you will stand out from other teachers if you get your students working as soon as they get into your classroom. Teacher tip number 8. Have additional worksheets and activities ready for early finishes. One of the biggest problems in class is when students do an activity and then there are some students that work very quickly and they finish. And then they say, oh, teacher, I want to play, or I'm going to bother my friend, or I'm going to work on this, or they're going to misbehave. So what you want to do is you want to have additional worksheets or activities for them to do. What I used to do in my English classes is I told the students to always have a reader with them. So as soon as they finish with their work, they're going to read. The other reason why we have to do this is because a lot of students will do sloppy work just so that they can finish and do something else. But if you have extra worksheets or extra activities planned for them, then they will take their time and actually finish the work you've set for them without doing a sloppy job. It's very useful if you have additional worksheets and activities that complement the work that they've already done. It will also help students feel more satisfaction at learning more. So, tip number 8, have extra worksheets and activities for early finishes. Tip number 9, challenge your students. Ask them questions from that very first day during class to keep them engaged. While you're teaching, Jimmy, or what do you think about this? Johnny, what is this? Sarah. By randomly asking students, it keeps them on their toes. They have to stay engaged and watch you. They have to listen. They have to take in the information. What I like to do before I start an activity, I ask the students, okay, everyone, what's the activity? What do you have to do? So you double check and make sure the students know. And maybe some students were sitting somewhere else and they didn't quite understand it, but now that their friends are explaining it, now they understand. So it's very useful to double check with the students by asking them questions. And listen, a lot of teachers say, oh, my students are too shy. By getting them to answer questions, you are also building their confidence. They will become more open to talking about things and to answering questions. Also, if a student answers a question, give them praise. That will make them feel good and they will answer more questions in the future. As a teacher, that's your job. Engage the students and build their self-confidence. That is why tip number 9 is challenge your students. Get them involved in the lessons. Teacher tip number 10, vary activities. Students can focus for a long time, so do different activities or break long ones into smaller parts. As teachers, we have routines and we have those trusted games that we always use. But if you use it too much, students will get bored and they won't enjoy it that much. So you can still have your routines and your activities that you usually use, but try and put in some new games or new ideas, a different way of doing things. We should be continually growing and experimenting with new ideas so that we stay fresh and on top of the game. I think the worst thing is if a teacher gets so set in their ways that they don't look out for new opportunities for growth. And for our students, we should vary these activities to keep them engaged and excited about the lessons that you're teaching. Try not to do an activity for too long, especially when students are younger. You want to have short activities, break it up, quickly transition to a new activity. That way, you keep them engaged in the classroom. Sometimes, when students really enjoy a game or activity, don't let it run for too long, because then they get bored of it. Rather, what you want to do is to have the activity, and while they're still into it and they enjoy it, you stop it and they will feel, oh, teacher, I really wanted to do this more. Instead of it going too long, you stopped it, so then they want to do that activity in the future again. So make sure that instead of doing activities for too long, rather end it a little bit earlier. And also vary your activities so that students can get the best out of their learning experience. Tip number 11, scaffold work. Start with the basics and progressively increase the difficulty. The problem is that a lot of teachers want to teach something and they think of it at a higher level, and they try and teach students at that high level, and then the students that get left behind, they don't actually understand and they feel like they don't want to learn anymore. So what you want to do is you want to scaffold your content, or you want to scaffold your activities. So what you want to do is teach students step by step until they are able to do something. When you scaffold content, teach them the basics first. Give them a solid foundation, and then you progressively add more content to it so that they can master the whole thing. Just because we are at a certain level doesn't mean that all our students will be able to reach that from the very start. You need to raise your students up by using scaffolding in your lessons. Teacher tip number 12. Never let them control your emotions. Be the mighty oak standing firm in the breeze. Students will test you. This is part of life. Don't ask for them not to test you. Ask to be stronger. By growing in confidence and growing in strength as a teacher and as an individual, the comments students make or the attacks or the nasty words or whatever they're doing won't affect you. When students see that they can't affect you and they can control your emotions, you will be much stronger and be able to take control of the classroom. Expect students to test you, and every time you get that test, smile, because when you pass it and you show, I am a strong individual, you will also grow and you will be a better teacher in their eyes. Think of it logically and don't play into their games. You are the adult. You are not a student. You are not going to play games with them. So disengage if they want that emotional reaction. Just say, listen, I'm not going to play these games. I'm sorry, those are the rules and that is what we're going to do. And they can say anything to you. Remember, the one that loses control is the loser. You want to be the teacher, the adult. You control your emotions. Nobody else can influence the way you feel. Think back on your strongest teachers. Anything you say against them, it would just bounce off. So, tip number 12, never let students control your emotions. Keep strong and don't let them affect you. Teacher tip 13, rephrase when students don't understand. Always give them a second chance to answer. When you ask the students a question or you explain something, and they don't immediately understand or they don't immediately answer correctly, rephrase the question in simpler language so that gives them another opportunity to answer. Also, some students might not understand the first time, and by rephrasing what you said, it gives them another opportunity to understand what you're teaching them. This is very important. Often in my English classes, I would ask the students a question and they would be quiet or not understand. And then I ask it to them again and just slightly change it or make it easier. And then the second time they understand. Remember, as teachers, we should be patient and we should allow our students to succeed. So rephrase your questions, rephrase the way that you teach something, because there might be someone who doesn't understand, so give them a second chance. Teacher tip 14, the 10-second rule. When you ask a student a question, be patient and give them 10 seconds to answer. Here's what many teachers do. They ask a student a question, the student is trying to think of the answer, and then the teacher already moves to another student. And then that actually shows two things. Number one, the student will actually feel like, oh, I needed more time to answer. I feel stupid. This teacher didn't give me enough time. It also shows students that you are impatient, which isn't very good for a teacher. You want to be patient. Ask your students a question. Wait for them. You could rephrase it so that they understand. Give them 10 seconds to answer. If they can't answer, go to a friend and say, oh, Johnny, can you quickly help her out? And then you also give them time to answer. Why do we do this? If you really believe in your student and you want them to succeed, it shows that you have faith in your students. Think if you have a really good student and you know they can answer something and you ask them the question, you would give them more time. There are many studies that also suggest that the more time that you give a student to answer, the better results they will have in that class later. Number 15, use proximity. Don't be afraid to get near learners, but also don't tower above them in a way that may invoke a flight or fight response. When speaking to younger learners, go down to eye level so that you don't intimidate them. What do we mean with proximity? While you're teaching or while the students are doing activities, walk around the classroom to show them that you are comfortable in the class. You aren't going to sit in one corner and wait. You're going to take up space, you're going to walk around, you're going to survey the students like a general surveys his troops. When working with difficult students, you also want to get close to them to show them that you are there and they have to be on good behavior. If you have a difficult student, put them close to you so that you can check in on them and they can also feel like you are not afraid to get close to them. But a big mistake many teachers do is they are perhaps older and they're working with a student and the student is doing something bad, so the teacher stands above them and tries to intimidate them with size. The first time it might work, but they will get angry with you. The next time you do it, they will actually verbally attack you or they will dislike you. On the flip side, if it's someone that's a bit meeker, if you tower above them, they will be afraid of you, and that isn't a good situation to be in with students too. So, what I suggest is get close to students so that they know that you are comfortable with it. But if you are admonishing a student, don't tower above them and try and intimidate them. That is a weak tactic used by weak men and women. Also, if you're working with younger learners, get down on your knees, eye level, talk to them. They will like you more and they will feel like, oh, this teacher isn't trying to scare me. I can talk to this teacher. So that's a very good idea for young learners. Number 16, create routines. Structures and routines help students feel safe and understand their roles in the classroom. Previously, I talked about procedures. You want to have procedures in your class that students can follow. Once a student comes into your class, they need to know exactly what will happen. Prepare them for success. So have routines. Let them come in and they know that the teacher is going to do this, 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 and I'm supposed to do this, this, and this. So structures and routines are just the way that you set up your class for success. Procedures are the things they have to do. If they do something wrong, they will have that feeling of, oh man, I messed up. So make sure to have a structure in your class so that students know what is happening, who do they go to. As humans, we feel way more comfortable and safer if we know what our role is and what will happen. That is just the normal way people are. Teacher tip 17. Film yourself teaching. You will see all the things you do well and things that you don't exactly get right. These days, everybody is on film, and we need to get more comfortable in front of a camera and also to hear our voices. For me, it's the same. The first time I got in front of a camera, I was very shy and I avoided it. Like most of you, the first time I heard my voice, I absolutely hated it. But I started filming myself teaching and I started filming myself like this. I can definitely say that my teaching has improved because I could see myself through my students' eyes. I could see the way that I spoke to them. I could see these small things that I did in class. I can see the way I moved around. I could see my body language. I learned so much from filming myself. We all think that we know ourselves, but we should see ourselves through our students' eyes. Also, you can hear the words that you use a lot. For example, for myself, I have certain words that I say over and over again. But by being conscious of it, I can improve the vocabulary that I use in the classroom. Teacher tip 18. Pick fights on your home turf. Never argue with students where they can put on a show. Delay conversations and ask them to speak to you later, privately, after class. Don't argue in front of a crowd. As teachers, we sometimes see students doing something in public or outside of the classroom. And when you speak to them, they're in front of their friends and they want to look tough. So they'll try and argue with you. And you don't want that. Let's say you see one of your students doing something that they shouldn't be doing with their friends. So you go over and you say, Jimmy, that's wrong. Please stop doing that. To look tough in front of his friends, he'll backchat or he'll try and argue. Instead of doing that, tell him, Jimmy, that's wrong. Let's continue this conversation after school in my class. Please come and see me. And walk away. You don't want to start an argument with your student in front of an audience. And this can happen in class too. Let's say there is a student and they want to start an argument. Just tell them, listen, these are the rules. This is what I want you to do. If you want to talk about it later, you can see me after class. But right now, let's get back to the task at hand. When students are in front of their peers, they want to look tough, or they don't want to come out in a bad light. So don't give them the opportunity. Delay it where you can talk to them on your home turf. You can talk to them after class in your classroom, or you can see them somewhere else. Number 19. Never let them see you sweat. If they know they can walk all over you, they will. Especially for new teachers, students are going to test you. They're going to say things to you. They're going to act out. They are going to try and press your buttons. Don't allow them to. Or even if they do things that make you feel upset or angry or sad, don't show them. Listen, we said this before. You want to be the strength in the classroom. You need to be the adult. You cannot let younger learners press your buttons. You cannot let them influence your emotions. Even if you do feel defeated, don't show them. Put on a mask and continue with class. That is also what it takes to be a professional at anything, is you shouldn't let your emotions get the better of you, or at the very least, don't show students that it is having an effect on you. Teacher tip 20. Pick your battles. Sometimes it's better to let small transgressions go by turning a blind eye. If students are doing something, if they're upset and it's something small that won't impact the class, just let it go. Turn a blind eye and continue, because you don't want to focus on every small mistake they make. Students get emotional and they make mistakes. Just let it slide if that is in the best interest of the class or for the continuity of the lesson. Listen, we've all made mistakes. As students, sometimes, they can say something they don't mean in the heat of an argument. Sometimes it's just better to let it go. Remember, we're all human, so it's better sometimes not to attack them for every small transgression. Teacher tip 21. Only shout in extreme situations. When you're in class, you don't want to shout. Speak in a louder voice if you must, but once you've shouted, you've lost it, because that shows the students that you need to raise your voice. And every time you need to raise your voice louder and louder and louder, it's going to have the effect that you need to go louder every time. So at most, speak loudly. You want to save that yell for an emergency situation. In your class, speak loudly, speak clearly, but never shout at students, because that will also reflect badly on you if other teachers and other students see you shouting. With your students, it also shows them that you've got a respect for them, and you are also being a role model, so they see that shouting is not okay in your classroom because you aren't doing it with them. They can't shout out in your classroom either. Teacher tip 22. Have your calendar well planned out and easy to access. Be clear on the event schedule, school activities, sports, extramurals. Learners will look to you to know. Students are young and they need information. You are the teacher of the classroom and you should be able to easily access it. So have a calendar with all the important events, and also have schedules to quickly check what is next, because you will be asked often. So I would say have it around your class, some of the important calendars and schedules, and also in files so that you can take it out and know exactly where everything is. I think the most important thing for teachers when it comes to admin is to be well prepared. You can never be too well prepared to be a teacher. Teacher tip 23. Connect with your learners. Greet them at the door and build relationships with them. The best teachers we have are the ones that we formed a really good relationship with. And that remains the same for you. When you meet your students outside, say hello to them, ask them questions about them, take an interest in their lives, get to know them, because the more connections you create with them, the more comfortable they'll feel with you and they will trust you more. I think love is so important between a teacher and their students, and you can show it by asking them questions and getting to know them. Teacher tip 24. Create rapport. So I said you have to get to know your students and take interest in their lives. The best students know that you care about them and their well-being. Also share some parts from your own life to show them that you are also a real person. Tell them interesting stories, tell them jokes. Also, you can ask them about what is happening in their lives. Share yourself with your students and ask them to share themselves with you. You have to create rapport with them. If a student likes a teacher, they put in more effort. Teacher tip 25. Don't take things personally. Be an adult and understand that there might be other reasons for their behavior that you might not know about. Growing up is tough. There are many reasons why students act out or they do things out of character. As the teacher, as the adult in the room, you're not supposed to take things personally. Just understand that things happen. Attack the behavior, but not the students. And also, give them some rope. Tell them it's okay sometimes. Everybody makes mistakes. So accept apologies and also tell them that, things happen, but you will forgive them if they apologize. Number 26. Have great expectations of your students. Then let them live up to it. The worst thing a teacher can do is look down on their students, saying that they're unable to do something or they're dumb. That's the last thing you want to do as a teacher. As a teacher, you want to have very high expectations of your students and you want to help them to get there. And from the very first day, tell them, listen, guys, I think that you can do amazing things. If we work hard, we put in the efforts and we do things right, you can achieve those high goals that I've set for you. Rather make them a little bit higher than you usually would so that they can at least aim for it. What is that old expression? Aim for the stars. If you miss, at least you'll hit the moon. Teacher tip 27. Demand mutual respect in your classroom. Students have to respect you and one another. When students don't respect you, they won't work in class. If they don't respect each other, then that might lead to bullying and some nasty exchanges in the classroom. And when students are bullied, they won't learn as well. So you want students to respect each other and to respect you. You as a teacher should also respect your students. So you should treat them in a fair and consistent way. When I first started teaching, I met a teacher who referred to her students as ladies and gentlemen. And I asked her, why do you do that? And she said, well, because if I call them ladies and gentlemen, I expect them to behave that way. And I've taken it for myself too. So now I call my students ladies and gentlemen. That is because I expect them to respect themselves, they respect me, and they respect each other. And you want to enforce that in your classroom. Teacher tip 28. Limit downtime between activities and transition smoothly. What you want to do is have a very fluid class. So you want to move from one activity to the next without downtime in between. Because during that time, students might get bored and they might do something they shouldn't do and they won't be as focused. It is more difficult to get their attention back to the task at hand. And also if there's a break in momentum, it is difficult to get them refocused. Instead, you want to have your classes planned out and there should be very little downtime between the activities. Quickly move on to the next one, especially with young learners, because you'll have them busy with one activity. As soon as that's finished, move them onto the next part that they have to do. This is a very good skill for teachers to learn early on. Teacher tip 29. Don't fear silence. Embrace it. This is a mistake I made when I first started teaching. In the class, the students were very quiet those first couple of weeks, and I thought, oh, they're so cute and shy, and I actually motivated them to start talking more. You know, at first it was just a couple of sentences between students, and they would chat a little bit, and that noise grew louder and louder and louder, and it became very difficult to manage. So if you have a classroom and the students are quiet, embrace it. Don't get them to start talking unless it's part of an activity. It doesn't mean that you should have silence throughout your whole class. It just means there's a time for everything. And if students are busy with their own work, it should be quiet. But when they're busy with pair activities or in groups, there should be more noise because they should be talking and discussing things. But when they're busy with their own work, keep it quiet and get used to that silence. Teacher tip 30. Be organized and be in control of your time management. You have so many things to do as a teacher, so it is vitally important that you stay in control of your time management. How long you're going to do certain activities, how much time the students need, you have to be in control of that at all times. It is very important to be organized. Have your files together, have your planning right, know exactly where everything is and when you have to do what. It is a good idea to have your bell times also scheduled out so you know when things will happen. The worst thing is if you're rushing with an activity to get it finished because you didn't plan for that time. Teacher tip 31. Explain goals clearly and be transparent with your objectives. Let students know exactly what you expect of them, what you want them to achieve. So at the start of the year, tell them what goals you have for them. At the start of an activity, tell them that's what they're going to do. That is what you want them to achieve. And then at the start of a lesson, tell the students exactly what you will do that day. Some teachers suggested, no, you should keep things a surprise. That is not how human beings work. We like to know what we have to do. It's the same with doing presentations. When you start your presentation, you tell the audience exactly what you're going to do so that they know where they are and when things will end. And it's the same with your students. When you start your class or your lesson or your activity or your year, you're going to tell the students, listen, this is our objective. I want you to reach it by doing this so that they are clear on what will be done and what is needed. Teacher tip 32. Use group projects and partner activities. Make learning a social experience. Learning should not be done in isolation. So if you have an opportunity, let students work together. Let them question their partner. It is your responsibility as a teacher to raise these students holistically. That means that you're going to teach your subject, but you also want them to be social and communicate with each other. So use group projects and partner activities where they can discuss things, they can ask each other questions, and they can also learn other skills besides the subject. They can learn social skills which will improve them as people. Teacher tip 33. Continually improve as a teacher. You want to join some teacher organizations, you want to go to seminars, you want to join workshops. You should continually improve yourself as a teacher. Learn new skills. Go online, find resources. Go to other teachers and learn from them. If it's possible, try and join some classes of experienced teachers because every little bit that you learn will improve yourself. One of the things they always tell teachers is to be a lifelong learner. And it's so important that teachers continually try and learn new skills and improve themselves. I've seen so many teachers just get comfortable in what they're doing and they get stuck in a routine. To stop that, you should try new activities. You should deliver the content in a different way. Always try and improve whatever you're doing. That is for your students and also for yourself. If you learn new skills that other teachers can do, then you are improving your value to your school and you're improving your value as a teacher and a person. So continually look for ways that you can improve. Learn new skills, go to workshops, join organizations, and become an expert in your field. Teacher tip 34. Leave your problems at the door. Your students deserve the best version of you. Enter your class with the right attitude. Teachers are human. We have problems at home. We have some things that bother us. If you look at the news, that can bring you down too. But as a teacher, it is your responsibility that once you enter that classroom, you let it go and you give your best to the students. I am not saying don't be human. Students know and understand and they will value you if you can show the human side of you. But remember, you are the leader in the classroom. I already said don't be emotional. Now I'm telling you, you're supposed to be a pillar of strength for your students. And that means that any problems that you have, any hang-ups, anything that's keeping or holding you back, leave that at the door. Go into the class with a fresh attitude and do your best for your students because they deserve that. It can be difficult, so I advise you to speak to other teachers if you have any issues. But once you go into your classroom, try and show the students the best part of yourself. Because remember, many of them are also going through struggles and they are very young, so they don't know how to exactly process that. They will look up to you to help them through difficult things too. And if they can see that you are strong, even though you might be going through something difficult, they will learn from that. And it's way more than you can ever teach any content or ideas, especially today where a lot of students are struggling with depression. If they can go into that classroom and they see a teacher showing the best possible version of themselves, they can think, well, maybe this teacher is going through something too, but they are showing me strength and that it is possible. Always keep that at the back of your mind, that you are a role model for your students, not just by the way that you conduct yourself, but also in the way that you control your emotions and issues you might have in your life. Teacher tip 35. Be professional. You should dress appropriately and respect your career. Students will learn to respect you too. I remember my first year of teaching, there was a teacher that wore a black suit when she went into the class for the first week. I asked her why, and she said, well, there's been some studies that if you wear a darker color, it shows that you are an authority and students take you more seriously. And ever since then, I would walk into my class with a black suit at the start of the semester. Students look to you as a role model. So it's up to you to dress appropriately and professionally, because it shows that you are taking them seriously. You are taking your job seriously. You should also conduct yourself as a professional because you are a role model for those students. I hate it when I walk around and I see a teacher looking sloppy, because even though I might be completely wrong, the idea that you take from them is that if they are sloppy in their appearance and they're sloppy in the way that they present themselves, then their material might be sloppy too. And you don't want to do that. Remember, teachers are professionals, and I think it is each one of us, it's our responsibility to promote that idea to the rest of the world. You and I know that many other professions tend to look down on teachers, so it's our responsibility to show the world that no, we are professionals and we take it seriously. That will have a massive impact on your class. Think about it this way. Imagine you go into your classroom, you've got a nice suit on, and you start teaching. The students look up to you and they think, wow, this teacher is really a professional and I will respect them for it. Now let's think of another situation where you go into class and you're sloppy and you don't conduct yourself professionally. What will the students think of you then? What will the rest of the world think of you? I've had this conversation with many other teachers before, and I know that many disagree with me, but we are professionals. Start dressing like it. You won't trust a doctor that looks sloppy. You won't trust a lawyer that goes into court not wearing a suit. Why would you trust a teacher that doesn't present themselves as a professional teacher? As teachers, we are constantly seen. We are in public all the time. I'm not saying you have to wear a suit all the time, but you should look professional. If you are coaching sports, that's fine. Just look professional while you're doing it. Wear the right clothes. When you interact with other people, you want to interact professionally, especially if it's other teachers and parents of students, because our image gives them an idea of who we are as a person and what we can do as a teacher. Teacher tip 36. Take feedback from your students, anonymously if you must. We need to find out if our students understand what we're talking about. So during class, you can ask them questions to check their understanding. Once you've given them instructions, you can ask them, okay, does everybody understand? Everybody will automatically say yes in most cases. So what you should do is ask your students, okay, so what do you have to do? How many minutes? What topic will you talk about? So just to reinforce that understanding of what they should do. After tests, check what they understood. Ask them, oh guys, I see you struggled with this. Why? Go over it. We need to get that feedback from students. Also, students will be more honest in what they need, so make sure to constantly check in on them. Another idea is to have exit slips. So once you've finished a unit or a lesson, you can ask the students to quickly write down, what did they learn from this class? What did they understand? What would they like to learn more about? If we get better feedback from our students, we can improve our teaching. So make sure you ask your students what they need more of. Teacher tip 37. Continue education opportunities. So, as a teacher, you teach in the classroom, but you should go and hunt down extra opportunities to improve your teaching. You can teach online, you can join teaching organizations, you can attend seminars. This is very similar to tip 33, where I told you that you have to continue your learning. But in this case, I want you to seek out opportunities to teach, because the more time you spend actually teaching or in front of a classroom or online talking with students, the quicker you will improve. If you have the opportunity to coach a sport or do some extramurals, do that, because the more of that you do, the quicker you will progress. I want to encourage you to take on more tasks, especially when you're new to teaching, because the more things you do, the better you will become quicker. Teacher tip 47. Gain students' full attention before explaining something. Speak only after everyone is silent. I've done a bunch of videos on how to get the class quiet. You should have some kind of procedure for them to be quiet. It could be something simple like 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. I know in the book by Harry Wong called The First Days of Teaching, he uses a 5-point system. So he says, give me 5. So first the students have to stay quiet. Next they have to put their eyes on the teacher. They have to put down their pencils. They have to be still. And then they have to pay attention. So if you have some kind of procedure that you can teach your students to give their attention to you, use that. It can be something simple like if you raise your hand, everybody should be quiet, put down their pencils and focus on you. Then, don't speak while other students are busy speaking. Stand in front of the class, wait for them to quiet down, and then speak. This does a few things. It shows the students that you are the leader in class and that your words are important, so they have to listen. Also, if you start speaking before all the students are paying attention or they're still busy talking, then some of those students aren't going to hear you, which means that you need to repeat what you've said anyway. So, stand in front of the class, wait for them to be quiet, and then speak. So, everyone, wait for full attention before you explain something, because it makes you a better leader and it gives all the students the opportunity to hear what you're going to say. Teacher tip 48. Treat everyone with respect. Let students greet adult visitors to your class. Expect their best behavior when someone is visiting. A lot of young teachers go through this where somebody is visiting their classroom. It could be the principal, another teacher, or perhaps a parent. And imagine your embarrassment if you're trying to speak to this person while the class is noisy. It is very embarrassing for a teacher because other people see this happen and they think, oh, this teacher isn't in control of their class. It reflects poorly on you as a professional. So what you want to do is have a procedure where if an adult comes into your class, the class is quiet. They are on their best behavior. Another good idea is to have the class captain or the class greeter or the class host stand up, walk to the adult, ask them, oh, sir, ma'am, what's your name? And then introduce them to the class. And the class says hello. Especially if it's a teacher or the principal that doesn't come to your class too often, make the class captain stand up and practice introducing them to the class. The class says hello, so they can say, class, this is Mr. Smith. And the class says, hello, Mr. Smith. Imagine what kind of impact that would have on the person visiting your class. You'd look like a super teacher. A good idea is for the students to practice explaining what they're busy with, because when an adult visits, they might ask the students, oh, what are you doing? And then they have to be ready to tell them. So practice it in class beforehand. Teacher tip 49. Encourage students' learning strategies. Help them define their learning tasks. Teach them ways to organize their notes, their learning devices, and cognitive strategies. It's not just our responsibility as teachers to teach our students. We should also help them be better learners. And to do that, we have to teach them how to learn, how to organize their notes, how to learn, how to study, and also cognitive strategies for learning. It is very important for teachers as professionals also to know how the human brain works and how it learns. Many of us have learned this at university, but we should continue to use those skills and also to pass on that learning skills to our students. As teachers, we should constantly be reading books about learning and improving as teaching, and this relates to professional development and then taking those strategies and passing them on to our students. Teaching tip 50. Know that kids notice everything and act accordingly. Before I told you that you should act and look like a professional. That means dressing well and also interacting with other people in a professional manner. Students are always looking. If you're in the class, think about that. How do you act? How do you communicate with other people? Because students will see that. They will go back to their parents and their homes and tell their families. So you need to be on the ball. You are a constant professional and you should act that way. Also on social media, I would say you should act professionally too, because we've all seen those things where teachers get caught out for saying bad things or for photos. So have a clear social media. I want to encourage you to interact with your students, but remember that you are supposed to be a professional, so don't share bad content. When you're in public, you still want to be professional because students can see what you're doing. I know this is a lot of pressure on you. You're going to say, well, Eric, teaching is just a job. Yes, it is, but it's important to remember that we are professionals, and especially in public, people can see what we're doing. You have to be a professional not just in the classroom, but also in your daily life, in the way that you present yourself and communicate with others. Teacher tip 51. Learn to say no. Don't easily give in to students and take on more responsibilities than you can handle. Often we as teachers, we want to please everyone. So perhaps when administration asks us to take on extra classes or do more work, we should try and do our best, but if we're unable to handle it, we should kindly reject them. Also, a lot of students or parents might request you to do something. If it's reasonable, you can accept it and help them or do something for them. But if your load is too heavy, learn to say no. You can say, sorry, I can't do this. I've got too much to do right now. Often I've seen teachers take on way too many responsibilities and they get weighed down. That affects their lives and emotions and can quickly become too much. So before that happens, tell people no. I need more time for myself, or it's too much for me to do right now. Please ask someone else. Teacher tip 52. Seek advice from experienced teachers. Find a mentor. It is so tough to learn to do something on your own. But if you had someone that can show you the way, that will save you a lot of time and a lot of trouble. So if you find an experienced teacher that you can trust, ask them for advice. Most teachers will generously give advice and tips, or if you have a problem, go to them and they will help you. I've had many mentors in my past that have helped me a lot. And I made this video series because I want to help other teachers out there. I do not see myself as a mentor yet, but I'd like to share some of the ideas and tips that I've received from very good teachers. So make your life easier, seek out those mentors and experienced teachers, and they can guide you to become a better teacher more quickly. Teacher tip 53. Continually reflect on your practice. Perhaps keep a journal. Time passes so quickly. Ask any teacher. You start the year and suddenly you're at the end. So what you should do is you should take some time to reflect on your lessons and your teaching. Think about what you've done, the good things, the bad things. How can you improve? A good way to do that is to have a journal that you can write in perhaps once a week to remind yourself of all the things that you've done, that you've learned. And by writing it down, you can look back and see how you've improved. This is a great thing that I think a lot of teachers don't use enough. Have a journal, reflect on your teaching, and then that will help you improve as a teacher. Teacher tip 54. Communicate high expectations. Set high goals for your learners. As a teacher, we want all our students to succeed, but if we want them to achieve the highest results, we've got to have high expectations of them. So, when you work with your students, they should know that you want the very best for them and you should constantly be pushing them. Don't accept mediocrity. Tell students, this is what I want you to do. Even if they don't achieve it, even if they get close, that is a bonus. It's like when you're running a race. If you run with someone that's very slow, that's not going to really push you. But if you run with some of the fastest people in the world, sure, you might end up last, but your time is going to be a lot better. I want you to have high expectations of yourself and also set high goals for your students. But I want to suggest that if they don't reach it, or if you don't reach it, don't take it too hard. Think about how you can actually achieve those standards in the future instead of getting down on yourself. Teacher tip 55. Use appropriate language. Avoid slang. Before I talked about being a professional, and that also includes our language. How do we communicate with students? How do we communicate with our colleagues? How do we communicate with parents? It's very important to use precise language and avoid slang, because obviously we are also role models for our students. They look up to you. As a professional, use professional language. It doesn't mean you can't use humor or use the fun word often, but don't use swear words, don't use slang if it's avoidable. And that also counts for social media. Remember, everything is being recorded these days. Whatever you say will be held against you. So have a higher standard in the way that you communicate with the world. The way that we use our language also affects our mindsets. So if you use a better vocabulary and avoid slang and you use good language, that will have a positive effect on your mindset and the way that you interact with other people. So be a professional, use professional language, especially in the age of social media. Teacher tip 56. Explain the importance of what you're teaching. Students need to understand the value of what they are learning to put in the necessary effort. If we tell our students to try and do something, they need to know why it's important. Would you want to do something if it was unimportant? No. So we've constantly got to impress the importance of whatever the students are doing. What skills are they learning? What knowledge are they gaining? Impress this on your students so that they know why it is valuable to put in the effort to reach those goals. If you explain the importance of the goals and why they're doing something, you will also have a much clearer understanding of how to reach that. That practice of explaining it will help you organize your thoughts and the way that you're going to teach the content. Teacher tip 57. Take pictures of everything. Take pictures of bulletin boards, projects, activities. I told you before that as teachers we should embrace technology and also social networking. So by taking photos of everything, you are gathering evidence to show what your students have been doing. Also, it will give you a much clearer idea of what you've done in your class. If you are asked to explain something to parents or other teachers, you've got photographic evidence. And it's so good for parents these days to see what their children are doing. Take those photos, put it on social media, or if you have a group chat with the parents, put it out. It's a great way to build a relationship with the parents and also to show what the students are doing. The parents will interact with those pictures or with those videos, and you can show them, listen, this is what we're doing in my class. It also provides evidence to the school board. If they said, oh, Eric, what are you doing? I can say, well, look at these pictures of what my students have been doing. Or if they're doing role-playing class, I've got these videos. Make sure that you've got the permission from the parents and the students to film them and only use it on a network that parents can access. If it's not possible, only take photos of the projects themselves and not the students. We have to understand as teachers how and when to use social media. Teacher tip 58. Be genuine. Show kindness and respect and treat your students like family. It's an understatement to say that teachers have to build relationships with their students. Students immediately know if a teacher is lying to them or not being genuine. If a student has a problem, show kindness and also respect all your students, because the way that you treat them is the way that they're going to treat other people. If we have our students as family, they can feel the love you have for them and work harder to show their love for you. The best teachers are those that create relationships with their students, and these relationships can last the rest of your life. Teacher tip 59. Be early, not on time. Set an example for your students. A teacher is never on time. A teacher is early to class, early to school, early to events, because that gives you more time to prepare. Remember, once again, you are the teacher. You should lead by example. By being earlier, you can also check that everything's working. The worst thing is if you want to start a class and there's something that's not right, something wrong with the computer, or you don't have the right papers or the right books. So be early to make sure everything is ready. Before I said that teachers are role models, students will see you arrive early and they will respect that. Also, your colleagues will take note if you're there early every time, which increases your value as a colleague and a member of the school. Teacher tip 60. Be a cheerleader for your subject. Learn to love it and show that to your students. If your students see that you love your subject, they will start feeling that energy too, and they will love it too, and they will put in the work to show you how important it is. Because if it is important to you, the students won't want to let you down. If you love your subject, you're going to put in a lot of work, and students will also add to it. If somebody doesn't enjoy their own subject, why are they even teaching it? They won't put in their work. So learn to love your subject and teach it with enthusiasm. Teaching tip 61. Respect confidentiality when given. Maintain the teacher-student relationship. Don't gossip or allow students to gossip with you. If a student comes to you in confidentiality, listen to them and help them, unless something dangerous can happen because of it. Otherwise, keep it professional. Keep it secret. Only work with a counselor or give them some advice. One of the things a lot of teachers do, however, is gossip. Try and stay away from that negative atmosphere. It can quickly sour relationships between teachers. One thing a lot of students do is that they would come to a teacher and say, "Oh, teacher, I hate this other teacher. They do something bad." If a student does that to you, tell them, "Sorry, I do not want to hear this. It is in bad form to gossip or say something bad about a colleague. Please keep it to yourselves or talk to the teacher about it. Do not spread gossip." But the problem is a lot of teachers think, "Oh, the students like me. They're sharing this with me." And you get that sense of pride that, "Oh, you're that special teacher that they're sharing it with." No, don't do that. That's really bad. If a student comes to you to gossip about another teacher, say, "Sorry, I'm not interested." Listen, guys, be professional, because a lot of these things will come out. Teacher tip 62. Establish good rapport with parents and administration. Make yourself available to parents by appointment or parent-teacher conferences. Teachers and parents need to work together to help the students. So if you have a good relationship with the parents, you can work together to help the student to improve. If you have a bad relationship or a close relationship, that will have an effect on the students, and they won't respect you because their parents don't like you either. So work at maintaining a good relationship with parents. Of course, you should stay professional, but help each other to help the students. Also, most teachers know that their best friend is the custodian and the lady at administration, because they can help you solve a lot of the problems you might have in your class. So build good relationships with everyone at the school, but especially with administration and the parents. Teacher tip 63. Know security drills and disaster procedures. Learn the school rules and policy. As a teacher at school, it's up to you to know everything about the rules and the drills at school. So know exactly how to handle fire drills or earthquake drills, or if there's an emergency. Also practice those with your students. You've got to know those school rules very well, so that if a student acts out or does something inappropriately, you know what the school rules are, and you can ask them, "Okay, what are the school rules about this? Please don't do it again." The best schools have a strong policy that the students and the teachers know very well. Make sure you learn all of these rules and all of these procedures. Teacher tip 64. Be organized. Have all your paperwork on file. As a teacher, there's so much paperwork to be done. You should have your grading ready, your planning, your files on all your students, the procedures. There's so much to do. So the best thing is to have everything done and organized. Because if you suddenly need to find something, some kind of evidence, or find some grades, you have to find it quickly to show it. This is one of the most important things about being a teacher. It's being organized and having everything ready, knowing where everything is. It's very difficult for a teacher who is not organized to be functioning at 100%. So have all your filing done, all your paperwork, know where everything is. If somebody comes to you and says, we need that file, you should be able to produce it immediately. If you're talking to some parents and they ask you about their child's grade, you should be able to produce that evidence to show them. So very important, be organized. It will make the rest of your teaching life a pleasant experience. Teacher tip 65. Prepare for absentees. Make it easy to reschedule assignments and other activities. It is a fact that some students will miss class, either because of illness or some other reason. So plan ahead for something like that to happen. I suggest having a procedure where if you're absent, you should go to the class captain to find out some work. The students should have access to what they should have done. Also, if you were doing some projects or assignments, have a way for a student to make up that work. This is where it's also very important to have clear communication lines with parents and students so that you can ask the parents what's going on or to deliver the work for the student if it's very important. Teacher tip 66. Use lesson reports to monitor your teaching. Previously, I told you to have a teacher journal where you write down what has happened during the year. Do something similar for lesson reports because some lessons are just better than others. And by monitoring your teaching, you will improve much quicker. You check what works, what doesn't work. You see how the students actually achieved their goals. And you can also monitor what activities you can try in the future. Lesson reports also serve as evidence. If somebody from the department came to check on your files, you can say, okay, well, this is what happened in the lesson. It also makes it easier for you to explain what you're doing in the class by looking back on those reports. Teacher tip 67. Make an effort to include all students. Leave no man behind. So that will make them feel valued. If you've got a large class, it's very easy to miss some students. Some students are more vocal or work harder. Some students are a bit more naughty, so you know them better. But in between there are students that are very quiet. They're perhaps not the best students and they're also not the naughty students. So maybe it might be easy to miss them. Make an effort to include all students, not just the good ones and the bad ones, but go for those quiet ones in between too. If you can include all students, it will make them feel valued. Also, other students can immediately see if you are not doing enough for some students by making everyone part of the lesson, by asking them questions, by giving them a chance to speak. You are building everyone up as a collective. So make sure to include all your students at some point or another. You can even make a note of who you asked before. If you've got a class list, go through the class list, make sure you ask them questions, check up on them. You don't want any students to fall through the cracks. Teacher tip 68. Observe other teachers when you can. Absorb great ideas to use in your class. Earlier, I said that you should try and find a mentor to learn from. But you can also learn from other teachers. So ask your colleagues if you can sit in on classes. Ask them, listen, what is the best activity for this? When observing other teachers, we can see how they interact with their students. And you can learn from that. I learn something new from every other teacher that is teaching. I look to see what they're doing well, what they're doing differently, and how can I incorporate that in my own teaching. Don't cut yourself off. Open yourself up. So if another teacher asks if they can observe you, welcome them. That will make you a better teacher. And then ask them, hey, listen, can I come and check in on one of your classes? I would love to learn from you. I've learned something new from every other teacher I've met or who I've observed. So do the same, ask teachers to work together. That's the quickest way that we're going to improve. Teacher tip 69. Identify your students' needs. Before you start teaching, you need to do a needs analysis. Find out exactly where your students are before you can try and teach them to become successful in your class. To do that, you have to find out what knowledge and what skills they have. Because if you know what pre-existing knowledge they have, you know what you can build on. Because if you start doing work that is out of their reach, that is too difficult, they won't understand it. Similarly, if you do things that are too easy, you are just redoing a lot of things they've already done. It's the same with their skills. What are they able to do? You want them to learn new things. You want to show them how to be better in whatever you're teaching. So first you need to make sure where they are. Check the understanding of the students. A good idea is to perhaps talk to a teacher that taught that the year before, so that you know what you need to teach them, where they are, and how you can best help them to achieve that. Teacher tip 70. Don't let the grading pile up. Make a schedule for marking. This is one of the realities of teaching. There will always be a constant flow of marking that needs to be done. You're going to have to grade papers, you have to check books, homework. It never ends. But we are human and we have our own lives to think of. So that is why it's important to have a schedule for marking. If you're at school, have your time where you can work without interruption. Or if you're at home, put some time aside where you can just sit, listen to music and do some marking. Most experienced teachers have some sort of marking schedule and they are always ahead. But life happens and we do fall behind. But try not to fall behind too far because it's very difficult to catch up. Teacher tip 71. Set firm boundaries between your home life and work life. We shouldn't bring our homes to work. And similarly, we shouldn't take our work back home, except for marking. You want to have a clear divide between what happens at school and what happens at home. Because you are only human. You should take care of your family and your own needs. And then when you get to school, switch on that professional you and focus on teaching. It is very difficult sometimes to find space in between the two, but make sure that you find some way of doing it. If you constantly talk about work at home, it's going to have a bad effect on your family because they want to spend time with you and not just your job. Also, if you are at work, you need to focus on what you're doing and your students. But if you bring in your home life all the time, it is not very professional. So find a way to have a boundary between the two. Teacher tip 72. Get enough sleep and exercise. Use some of those sick days. It is tough being a teacher, especially with the schedules we have. You have to wake up early, go to school, after school you've got errands to run or you're doing extramural activities. And then when you finally get home, you have to take care of your family. So it's easy to put yourself and your physical needs in the background, but you shouldn't. You should take care of your physical needs because that will help you be a better teacher, a better mother, a better father, a better person all around. When you exercise and sleep enough, you will have more clarity, you will have more energy, and you can focus better. And that is what your family and your students deserve. What I suggest is mixing in your social life with an activity. Walking, playing badminton, tennis, whatever you enjoy and can do with your friends, do something like that. If you have a partner, find something physical you can do together. Bowling or swimming, have something you can do with your kids. In your classes, you have to use TPR anyway. Try and do activities that let the students release some energy and also gives you an opportunity to stretch your muscles. I think a very good activity for teachers is stretching more, also walking around. Those are things we need to do to build up our energy. Also try and get enough sleep. There's nothing worse than a teacher that is chronically tired. So make sure you get enough sleep before you come to school. I would suggest staying away from electronic devices an hour before bed. I know it's very difficult. We've got our phones, we've got the TV, we've got the computer. Switch those off, turn off many lights so that you start to prepare your body for sleep. To read a book or do something with your kids, because that is a very good habit to have, is to be able to go to bed early. Teacher tip 73. Don't focus on learning styles. There is no data to support that it works. At university, we were taught that there are many different types of learning styles. Students like to take in information in different ways, be it kinesthetic, or be it audible, or by reading, or by doing something. There is no data that supports this. Besides, as teachers, we're supposed to raise our students in all these different ways. We shouldn't primarily focus in one way. Besides, most kids will just think, oh, I can't listen well, I should just do reading, or I like to be physical. That is not true. Use all these different ways to teach your students. Make sure that your students are able to read, they're able to touch and do things, they're able to listen to instructions. We need to raise them holistically. I think you should focus on teaching your students using a variety of methods. Teaching tip 74. Become a mentor. At the very least, take the mindset of a mentor. How would you help someone if they were in your position? When you first start teaching, it feels like there's so much to learn and you need to get that experience. But once you've been a teacher for a number of years, then you can help new teachers to the field. Because you take on that mindset of a mentor, or you start by helping others, that will help you improve your own teaching as well. Think about it this way. You learn by teaching. So if you have been in teaching even a number of years, try and mentor someone that's new and give them tips and help them. That will build up your own confidence, and that will make you think about your own practice as well. Teacher tip 75. Walk through the class while teaching. While students are busy, the worst thing you can do is only sit at your desk and do some work. Sometimes that's appropriate, but you should stand up and walk around the class and check up on your students, because they will know that you are looking at them. You can ask them some questions, you can give them some tips and advice, but the main idea behind it is to show the students that you are in control of their environment. You feel free to walk around and own your territory. Just like a lion in the Serengeti, you're going to walk around your class and check up on the students. If you are only sitting at your desk, you are not doing your job and you're not paying attention to them, and some of the students will start taking advantage of that. Make sure that you walk around the class, go up to students, ask them questions. If some students are being naughty, get closer, get into their proximity so that they know that you are there and you are in charge. Teacher tip 76. Set the tone for the day if you go on a field trip. Discreetly let students know that you are still the authority, even though it's a different environment away from school. So let's say you're going on a field trip. If you have the students in your class a week before, you're already telling them what you expect them to do and you're laying down the rules. Right before the trip, line them up, tell them that even though you're going to a new place, maybe a museum, maybe, to a park, maybe somewhere else, you tell them, I am the authority. If something happens, you come up to me. This is not your mom's house. And you want to have procedures in place for if things do go wrong. So tell the students exactly what you expect from them. When you get on the bus, remind them again, I am the teacher. This might be away from school, but I still expect you to act like students. If you have any problems, if you act out, I will be there, I will be watching you, and there will be consequences. So be sure to remind your students of that, and they have to know exactly what is expected of them. Teacher tip 77. Master difficult parents early on. Build partnerships with them to work together. Teaching is a social career. You have to work with your students, you have to work with colleagues, and you also have to work with the community and parents. So sometimes there are some parents that are very involved, sometimes there are parents that are going to be difficult. You know when some parents are going to be difficult, so start forming a good relationship with them early. It should be professional. You should work together with them to help their children. It's important for you to have open communication with them. Talk to them on parents' evenings, invite them over, talk to them on the phone, and tell them that they can reach you by email or by phone or however you wish to be contacted. Very important, Build a good relationship with parents, especially the difficult ones. Teacher tip 78. Differentiate content, processes, products, and learning environment to suit your learners. Every student is different and they have different needs. As teachers, we have to find out what the strengths of our class are and how we can best teach our students. Some students are also on different levels, so you want to differentiate your content for all the students to understand. Your processes should accommodate all skill levels, the homework and products that your students have to create. Differentiate the products or the homework or the assignments that your students do so that it fits what they're interested in or what their levels are. Differentiate the learning environment. You can have different stations for different students. You can have different materials that delve into the same topic. You can give students the option of what kind of activity they would like to do. By doing this, your students will appreciate you and you will teach all different levels of students. We have to remember that all our students are unique and we should try and cater to their needs. By differentiating all these different acts of teaching, we will help them become better students and we will become better teachers by trying out these various ideas. Teacher tip 79. Focus on building a classroom community. Students need to socialize. Part of being in a classroom is for students to talk to each other, so that is why it's so much fun to have group activities. The students should also remember to have respect for each other and for you. We are not only raising our students to be good at a certain subject, but we are also raising them to be adults in society. So they should practice working together with others, making friendships, and as a teacher, you should also help them solve problems or issues in small groups. By teaching our students how to respect each other and how to communicate effectively in groups, we are preparing them to be responsible adults. That is why we expect our students to do presentations for them to practice in front of groups. That is why we use group works for them to work together. Also, when we put them with partners, they can talk to each other and learn how to communicate effectively. Many teachers think, okay, should I allow the students to pick their own groups or to pick their own partners? I like to pick them randomly because I believe if they only pick their friends, they don't get that opportunity to build a relationship with someone else. In life, we do not choose who we work with all the time. We have to work with strangers. So that is why when I pick students for projects or when they pick partners, I do it randomly. So that is a chance for them to practice social skills. Teacher tip 80. Make your class a nice place to be. Spend time on classroom decor. When students come into a classroom, the first thing they see is going to be their first impression. So make sure that your classroom is colorful. There are lots of examples of work on the walls, maybe some topics that you will cover in class. Make it a pleasant place to be. A student's environment has an effect on how hard they will work and whether they respect their teacher and their subject. So as teachers, we should create a nice environment for them to study in. We should make it colorful, put lots of pictures, use some of the projects that you've done before, or have perhaps some pictures of icons in your subject on the wall so that students are surrounded by the subject that you teach. It is also good for parents when they come and visit, they can see examples of what is happening in your classroom. Students should also respect their environment, so every day you should remind them to keep their area neat. Because if they respect their tables, if they respect their classroom, they will respect themselves and the subject and you. Spend a lot of time on making your classroom a nice place to be. If you have a dull classroom, it is difficult for students to find inspiration in that environment. So it's up to you as a teacher to create a beautiful classroom where students can spend their time studying, learning, and be proud of what they're putting out into the world. For you, it will also be nicer to be in a classroom like that. So make sure that your desk is neat and tidy too, and that you expect the same from your students. Teacher tip 81. Create classroom jobs. Make one of the students a host to greet adults when they enter. Have a class captain that you can give tasks to, and have someone to throw away, students to clean the class. You can change the responsibility within the class, but by giving students jobs, you are giving them a responsibility, and that will help them grow as students and as individuals. If they take these jobs seriously, they will enjoy that responsibility. You can even make a chart so that students share responsibilities and do it at different times. Great leaders delegate, and great teachers should also delegate responsibility. That way, you don't have to do all the small things. You don't have to constantly ask them to do something. So make sure you give students classroom jobs. Teacher tip 82. Rewards. Reward students with stars, opportunities to have fun, whatever they value most. You can hand out candy once a week, but I don't suggest doing it every day, because then the students will just feel like they are entitled to it. I think that is a big issue we have. If you give out stars, if you give out opportunities to have fun, make sure that it's worth it and they have to work hard to get it, because a lot of students will just become entitled. They'll do something just for that reward. And of course, as teachers, we know that we have to build that intrinsic reason for them to be working hard. They shouldn't need rewards, but it's a nice extra for students to feel like, wow, you know what? I received something. You can make it a classroom reward, or you can make it individual rewards. It's up to you. A good idea is also to ask your students, okay, what do you value? What do you want in this class if you worked hard? Give them the opportunity to watch a movie, or perhaps read books, or do something interesting, play outside once a month. There are many different rewards that you can pick. Talk with your students, talk with other teachers, and find some interesting ways to reward them. But I want to emphasize, remember, working hard shouldn't depend on the reward, because then that's all they want. Make sure to let them understand that you want to build up that intrinsic reason for them to do it. Teacher tip 83. Get students moving. If they are bored, let them stretch. Use yoga or chants to energize them. Incorporate movement into your activities when possible. We call it total physical response, TPR, where we act out different things. So I would say, as a teacher, you should also be in control of the energy levels in your classroom. You can start off with a fun, ice-breaking activity. Then you go down when you lecture them, their energy goes down. Then you push it back up by using a fun activity. Then they do another reading or writing activity. And at the end, you review in another fun way. You have to monitor what the energy levels are. You don't want them overexcited the whole class, because that leads to trouble, but you also don't want a boring class, because then some students will act out, they will fall asleep, and that's also not where you want to be. You are in control of the energy in your classroom. If you see that the students are getting bored and yawning, wake them up, tell them, okay everyone, let's do a yoga pose. Or now quickly with your friend, act out a different word, do some charades, or let them stand up, let them stretch, do a simple Simon Says. There are so many activities that you can do, but try and incorporate movement into the activities in your class. Obviously you want it to be controlled, but you want to allow your students to also use their bodies, because that's another way that they can learn. Especially when you're teaching English like I am, you want to incorporate TPR into your classroom. Teacher tip 84. Make connections between what they are learning and what they already know. This is maybe the most logical thing about teaching. You want to teach your students something new, but you have to connect it to their prior knowledge. How do you do that? First, you have to bring up their previous experience or previous knowledge, their previous skills, and then you want to add to it. Because how the brain works is it makes connections, and the more connections you have to something, the better you will understand it and the better you can use it in the future. So what we have to do is we have to understand our students, and we have to ask them questions. We have to present it in a way that they can connect with. If you're going to teach your students something, maybe explain it from a point of view that they understand. Maybe bring up an experience that they are familiar with when you teach them something new. Often we see teachers trying to teach something new without understanding where the students are, what their level is, or what their prior knowledge is. And that is extremely difficult to suddenly, out of the blue, explain something. Teacher tip 85. Build a growth mindset with your students. They are able to learn anything if they spend time, energy, and focus on it. This idea comes from Professor Carol Dweck, where she talks about the growth mindset. Many times people think, oh, I'm not able to do something because I don't have that ability, or I'm not very good with speaking, or I'm not very good at math. I just suck at it. I'm never going to get better. But actually, we should start building our students' growth mindset. We should encourage them to learn and emphasize that if they spend time and energy on it, they will become better. That is why many parents send their kids to music classes. So if they're learning the piano, they know if they spend time and energy and focus on it, if they put in the commitment, they will improve. And that mindset translates to everything that we attempt in life. So as teachers, we should tell our students, you are capable of doing anything you set your mind to. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do something because you're not very good at that skill. Tell them if you commit yourself and constantly work at it, you will improve and you can achieve your dreams or whatever you put your mind to. Teacher tip 86. Stay on top of planning. Once you fall behind, it is very difficult to catch up. I think what separates great teachers from average teachers is their ability to plan and their ability to stay on top of their administrative work. We have to document everything our students do, we have to plan our classes, and we've got to present it to the school and to the department. So it is very important for us as teachers to have our planning set and also to keep up with all the work we do. You do not want to go into a classroom unprepared. So you should have your lesson planning, your weekly planning, your planning for the term. You should also have your grading. What activities will you do? Where do you get your resources from? All these things you want to plan out in advance. It is so tough if you have to walk into class and pull a lesson out from nowhere. It is very difficult. So make sure that your planning is correct and it's ready for whenever you have your classes. Also, constantly rework your planning to make sure that it's optimal for your students. Try out new activities. Look at what worked and what didn't work and prepare for the future. That is what planning is. Teacher tip 87. Document everything. Make sure you are organized in class. Record notable events. For example, you've got your planning, but you've also got your grading, you've got your student information, and you've got to write down everything that happens. If something happens to a student, if you notice them doing something in class, make a note of it so that you can talk to other teachers or perhaps with their parents if they come in for parents' evening. If something happens in the class, if an activity works really well, write it down, say, wow, this worked. Or if something didn't really quite work out, make a note out of it so that you know you can fix it in the future. It is up to us as teachers to document everything, because sometimes even a small detail can have an effect on your class in the future. Maybe somebody will ask a question about it. So make a note, because it is very easy to forget things. Have your filing in order so it's easy for you to write down something about a student, something about a class, or something about your planning. Planning is also very important for our schedules and whatever is happening at school. Remember, we do not work in a void. We've got our classroom, but there are so many things happening outside of class and also with our personal lives. So make sure that you write down everything and you document it in a place where you can easily access it. Teacher tip 88. Create a support network of other teachers at school, but also friends and family to rely on outside of school. We are human and we are only one person. But if we have a support group of other teachers we can talk to, ask advice from, and also to support, we can build a nice partnership to work and do things together. A really good school has a united front of teachers, and those teachers have support networks, other teachers that can help them, and also at home they've got a support network of friends and family that they can rely on, because many times something goes wrong and you need to ask someone for help, or maybe mentally you feel worn out or you feel upset about something that happened. So it's very good to have some friends that can cheer you up and that you can talk to. Do not isolate yourself because you are scared to ask for help. Build those relationships because that will help you improve as a teacher. It is good for your mental well-being and also for your career. Teacher tip 89. Never use sarcasm. It might cause a misunderstanding and teachers need to be clear. The greatest teachers use humor in the class because students enjoy it and they can relate to the teacher and it makes the classroom fun. But try not to use sarcasm because sarcasm hurts people. If you use sarcasm on a student, they might take offense to it. Other students might enjoy it, or they might see you as a tyrant in class that brings other people down. So try not to use sarcasm because if it's misunderstood, it can really hurt some students. They go to their parents and say, oh, this teacher said something mean about me. Or they don't say anything, but they dislike you for using sarcasm in the class. Listen, you can make jokes, you can have fun. It is part of being a teacher to tease your students, but don't use sarcasm to hurt them. It is expected of us to have better social skills. We are also adults, and we should show our students how to interact with other people. Would you like it if someone used sarcasm on you all the time? Probably not. So it is fine to tease and it's fine to make jokes in the classroom, but not really at the expense of others. When I tease the student and they know that I care for them and it's fun. I make sure not to make them feel hurt, or I give them an opportunity to actually get back and do something good to make themselves proud. Students are human and they have emotions. We should take that into account and we should manage the emotions in our classroom. We want our students to be happy and have a good time in class. So try not to use sarcasm or other things that might hurt them. Build them up and keep them happy and motivated. Teacher tip 90. Understand copyright laws and make it clear to your learners. We have to interact with the world and the material that other people create. So we should understand copyright laws. We should explain plagiarism to our students, especially if they have to start doing projects, because they will have to recite sources and they have to do it correctly because we cannot steal another person's ideas. We cannot steal another person's work. So we have to understand copyright laws ourselves and also teach our students how to cite sources. You can also use software to check for plagiarism. It is very easy to go out and copy parts of other people's work, but we have to tell our students that we will find out and there are severe consequences to plagiarism. Teacher tip 91. Recognize students who do outstanding work as well as those that need to improve. When a student does really good work, praise them, say, listen, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for doing it this way. But remember to give them critical advice to help them improve, because if you only praise them, that will go to their heads. Then, students that are not doing very well, you want to give them ideas for how they can improve in the future. You say, well, thank you for trying if they did try, because it's not important how well they do, but it's the effort they put in. So if they put in enough effort, praise the effort, tell them, wow, you tried very hard, but here are some things that you can improve for the future. Remember, we do not want to praise the students for their results or for the products, but we want to praise them for the effort they've put in for doing it. The time, the energy, the focus that they put into their work. So if you have students that do not put in the effort, reprimand them and tell them that you expect more. But praise students that put in the work, especially if they do an outstanding job. Teacher tip 92. Write assignments on the board and also verbally remind your students daily. I talked before about having processes in your classroom. One of the processes should be that there's always a place where the homework or assignments are written down for students to see. You should also remind them daily, because students forget. We are also very forgetful sometimes, and our students even more so. So have a way for the students to get the homework. Always write it down and explain it to them, remind them. If you have a weekly newsletter, you can put it in there. Teacher tip 93. Encourage parents to be proud of their kids. Promote sportsmanship when parents watch their kids play sports or attend school events. We've seen it so many times. Our parents really love their children and they want the best of them. So when they come and support them, they cheer and they shout. But often if we see in sports that parents get too invested, they get angry at each other. Sometimes we see parents actually fight or say harsh words to referees, and you do not want that. Schools should have some kind of policy or some way to let parents know that they are ambassadors for the school. And they are also role models for their children, so they should act appropriately. We want our parents to come and support their kids. Imagine if you're a kid and you saw your parents watching you, you're so proud and you really want to do well. So we should encourage them to come, but they should come and they should support in a positive way. And that means not saying anything bad to referees, not saying bad things about other schools' students. We should have a positive environment that is encouraging and not putting down other schools or other people. Sportsmanship is very important, and we should teach this to our students from a very early age. Teacher tip 94. Provide students with sample quizzes and tests so they can become familiar with your approach. Tests can be nerve-wracking. Students get a lot of anxiety before they do quizzes or they have an examination. So as teachers, we need to prepare our students for those tests. We can give them practice tests to get used to the format or the way that we ask our questions. That way, they are prepared when they walk into that exam. They know exactly what to expect and how to answer. That is a way for us as teachers to alleviate exam stress, is by doing mock tests. I love doing this with my students when we review, so that they can practice the material and become familiar with what will happen in a test situation. Teacher tip 95. Give students the benefit of the doubt, but not repeatedly. When students do something wrong, they might have an excuse or reason for it. Listen to them and accept it. But if they continually cross the line or they do something wrong or inappropriate, take action. We have to give our students a chance, because obviously things happen and they are also learning. But if they repeatedly cross that line, that is not good. If they make the same bad decisions, or they don't do their homework, or they get into fights, then that is a behavior that is unwanted and that you want to change. As a teacher, it's your responsibility to give them the benefit of the doubt, but if they do the same transgressions over and over again, you've got to talk to them and you've got to punish them to change that behavior. Teacher tip 96. Never stop learning. Be a lifelong learner. Always look out for new things to try in your classroom. We are often reminded that as teachers, we should also be lifelong learners. We should constantly be learning and trying out new things to improve as people and improve as teachers. We should learn new techniques, use new content, and try different things in our classroom to become better. If we just do the same thing over and over again, we won't improve. And remember, the world is also changing. We need to adapt. We've seen this with teaching online. Teachers have had to learn new skills, and that will continue to happen in the future. New things will happen, and as teachers, we need to adapt. So we have to have that mindset of being a lifelong learner. Learning never stops. We have to continually improve. Teacher tip 97. Focus on what works. Strive for excellence, not perfection. What does that mean? If you have something that works in the classroom, if it's a procedure or an activity or a way that you teach, continue doing that. Add extra things to make it interesting. But if something works, don't try and change it. What is that expression? Don't try and change a winning formula. Use the things that work for you, that work for your students, but add some extra things and try different things as well. But that being said, don't stray away from things that work for you in the classroom. Consistency is key, so perhaps use 80% of the things that work and maybe 20% of new ideas that you want to try out. Teacher tip 98. Everything is a learning opportunity, so explore new topics and activities. We are constantly growing in life, and we should use that as a resource for our teaching. So if you learn something new, if you try out something, share that with your students if that can help them in whatever you're trying to convey to them. Use your life and the things that you learn in your classroom, because that is an authentic way of teaching. And when students see that the material comes from your life and your knowledge and you're sharing it with them, they will appreciate it more. Try and use these ideas from your life. Use it in your teaching, and that will help students to understand it from your point of view. Teacher tip 99. Use hand signals and other non-verbal communication. Learners will quickly get to know your eye contact and expressions. Sometimes you don't want to talk loudly to your students. Rather use hand signals or expressions if possible. For example, if you want them to quiet down, you can show them 5 fingers, meaning that they have 5 seconds to quiet down and pay attention to you. Or you can use eye contact. When someone's doing something that they're not supposed to, just give them the look. Students will get to know that look and realize, okay, wait, I'm going to be in trouble if I continue doing this. You can also use expressions. If you're excited, if you're interested, if you're displeased, students will pick up on it. Instead of being loud and using your words, maybe a better approach is to use non-verbal communication so that you don't get the whole class involved and you can just work with one student or a small group. Teacher tip 100. Be consistent in everything. Be authoritative, not authoritarian. Be firm, but flexible. Students are looking up to you as a teacher to provide them with stability. And by being consistent in the way that you behave, in the way that you teach, in the way that you treat other people, the trust in you will grow. So, be an authority figure, but don't be an authoritarian. Be firm, but flexible where you can be. That way, students trust you. Your colleagues will trust you, and they will do better to earn your trust. Okay, everyone, I hope these 100 teaching tips helped you. I had a great time writing them down and sharing some ideas. Obviously, there are so many parts to being a good teacher that I might have missed. I hope these 100 ideas can help you in your road to become a better teacher. Everyone, I'm Eric from Attaining, and I'll see you next time.